want to ask that you continue to bless us and imbue Pastor Lupondwana in a special way with your blessing. Guide him in whatever that you want him to say unto us in order to nourish and build our families. Father God, be with each and every one of us who is participating today, and let us leave this session, Father, having been fulfilled and our families being ready to take a better step forward in life. Father, we want to ask that may this presentation also reach out to those who are not in a position to log in at this moment. Let them get to hear what you want them to learn and to build their families. Father God, we want to ask that you forgive us our sins where we have erred against thee, that you confirm once more our names in the book of eternity. For all this, we ask in Jesus, in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Thank you.
Has Wow. Thank you, Tshepo. Thank you very much with that rendition of music. At this moment, I'm going to give over to the Mukwene family, who are the leaders of family life at TESDA. Their role this afternoon is to give thanks and acknowledgements to those who participated and who worked behind the scenes to make this program possible. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Elder Mukwena and Mrs. Mukwena.
Good evening, everyone.
What a week we've had in making our families great. We hope that you all have had a great time. This was an eye-opening, empowering, and life-changing at the same time. We thank you all for tuning in. We know that data is not cheap, but you chose to spend this week with us. We thank you for that. We've really enjoyed your company and would like to appreciate you in a special way.
In appreciating each and every one of us in a special way, we want to appreciate the most important guest of ours, which is Pastor Lupondwana, and not only himself, Sister Avia, the wife, and the children. We know that he was not only coming alone, but he was having a cloud of witness behind him, which is the family. So the rest of the family, the Lupondwana family, we really appreciate, and may God bless you.
In appreciating you even more, we have prepared this e-gift that is going to come your way very soon, compliments of the organizing churches, and we truly know that you're going to love it.
Talking about Preacher Lupondwana, Pastor Lupondwana, I can tell that if it was not because of this COVID-19, the hall or the church or the venue would have been very, in full capacity. We would not even have enough space for people to sit in. And this I can say because of the topics that we covered. I can tell you that yesterday's topic, for instance, that spoke about is God the absent father. That was an eye-opening kind of a topic. In actual fact, I'm not sure where families are this evening. I'm sure that maybe you, Pastor Elder Gia, you have gone to reclaim one of those child that have not been reclaimed. Not only yourself, maybe I've done the same, who knows. Elders very soon will know and will be, declared of children that have been brought into families. This, of course, there is no child who must do what? Stay without a parent. And I think this to me came as a powerful message to say every child deserves a parent. And as families, let us work together to make sure that if there's a child who's not in this home, let that child, experience not only the home, but the parent that is in me or that is in somebody else.
Okay, we know that that's not the only topic that was enjoyed. There's many others, and we know that each and every one of you have their favorites. So may the peace of our Lord abide with you all and your families now and forever. Lots of love from the coordinators of family ministries, from Acacia, Munich English, Mooikloof and TESDA Church, our pastors, our elders, as well as our technical support team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Mkwenes. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As I said, that the Mkwenes are the family life ministry leaders at TESDA. We really appreciate it. Was a pleasure working with you, putting this program together, having virtual meetings and you know, all sorts of meetings that we've had, debriefs and stuff. It was really a pleasure working with you, Acacia, the brethren from Munich. Thank you very much. We really appreciate, you know, this working together that we had. Mfundis, thank you very much. There is just no words to express our gratitude to you and your family and everyone else who's been supporting you. We don't even know what to say except to say that part 2 is on the pipeline. We can't get enough of this. Part 2 is definitely on the pipeline. Without any further ado and waste of time, I'm going to hand over to our pastor, who's going to lead us on a very powerful topic, very powerful, very difficult. And I really appreciate, my pastor, the manner in which you take these difficult topics and you make them so practical, you know, such that after listening to the presentation, you realize that we can relate to this, you know, and this is not impossible. We can be able to have better families. And I pray that that's the experience of everybody who's been listening and following through. After the session, we are going to have our questions and answers, and we will then close the program immediately after that. I think my elder is here from Munich, Elder Yao, who will be closing with a word of prayer. He must prepare himself. Thank you very much. Over to you, Pastor.
Thank you very much. I have enjoyed my time. It's been a great week, and I pray that the Lord will bless us with an opportunity to do things again. As I say, I really enjoyed myself. Now we are going to talk about a topic: blended families. Blended families is a tricky topic. It's not tricky because we don't have blended families. It's tricky because when we think about them, we don't always know what to do and how to minister to them. Sometimes when we think about blended families, we don't appreciate the full spectrum of what can be done. And I'm hoping that today we can't cover everything about it. And I'm hoping we're going to cover just a few things about ministry to blended families, so that the families who are here can understand a few things. Those who are in blended families could understand a few things, and also understand the thinking and the spiritual counsel that comes from it for situations like those. Blended. Now, what's a blended family? A blended family is a situation where the two parents who are married do not have the children in this family do not belong to both of them, and we'll do the different itinerations of that. Someone asked me one time if it is a blended family when it's one parent, one mother, 3 children, each child with their father. Well, we'll deal with that later. But at this stage, we would not be using that category to include them in the situation of blended families. I think it requires a separate treatment under single families. I'll tell you why. Because one of the things I've noticed is that when you deal with situations like those, the different children, it's possible for the different children to have different experiences of life, depending on what's happening with their fathers, respective fathers. But it would require that we deal with it separately. But when we are dealing now with blended families, we're dealing with a situation where you do have people who are married, but the children who are in this marriage don't belong to all of them. Both the children, if there are 3 children, these 3 don't belong to all, biologically belong to both people who are in the couple. Now, we are going to start by dealing with the environment of blended families. And Don't be traumatized by that list. It sounds long. We're going to talk about the causes of blended families. We're just mentioning, we're not going deep into it. We're going to get into the parents of blended families and how that kind of impacts the situation, the residents of them, how the relationships with biological parents ended, the current relationship status of the other biological parent, and that can be an issue, financial position of the other biological parent, your financial position, and the philosophies of parenting. Parenting a child that is not resident. All right, so let's get started with the first one, the causes of blended family. There are three main causes of blended families. Is when you get married and you had children before you got married. So you are coming into the marriage with your children you had in a relationship before, your premarital relationship. Now, this could be either the wife who's coming with a child or children from a premarital relationship, or it could be a husband that's coming in with a child or children from a premarital relationship. The second cause for blended families is when you are married, but you had been divorced before. And in that first marriage, you had children, a child or children. And so you're bringing those children, that child or those children into this relationship. The third cause is when you are married now, but this is your second or third marriage or whatever the case may be. But in the previous marriage or marriages, the spouse died and you had a child there in that relationship. So you're bringing that child or those children into this marriage. These are the three broad causes of blended families. People have wondered whether a blended family includes adopted children. No, once you adopt a child, that child is yours, both of you. So there's nothing blended there. You are both, in the sense that you are both in the same boat when it comes to the child. This child is not a biological child of that one and not a biological child of yours. You are both not biological children, parents of this child. You have both adopted this child. So when we talk about adopted children, those we don't include that category in blended families. Now, the cause of the blended family can be, let's start here first. The cause of the blended family can be an issue that can affect how things happen in the blended family. Let me start with the death one. When someone is marrying you and their spouse has died, and the child has lost a parent, either lost a father or lost a mother, and now they're in a new relationship. There's something about death that makes us look at the bright side of things. We tend not to see the blemishes of those who have died. As a result, you who are married to someone whose former spouse had passed away, and their children are living with you, and their father or mother had passed away, you are dealing with someone who the brain socialized that way. Our brain is socialized to see the good of all of the people who have died. This is why we usually say good things about them at funerals. So here you are living with someone whose husband may have probably been a 4 out of 10, but now that they've died and they married you to in memory of the dead, the 4 can easily become a 7 or an 8. And this guy who was even slightly below average, all of a sudden, was a very good father. This mother who was a 4 out of 10, now that they've died and people are remembering them and missing them. And remember, when we miss people who have died, our minds usually go to the good things, unless the person was just horrible. But generally, we usually go to those few moments. If he once took us out on holiday for 3 days, once, all of a sudden the mind remembers that this person used to take us out on holidays, plural, as if it happened more than one time. That's just how the mind works. The mind tends to go to the fond memories. And so, you'll generally be dealing with the memory of someone who may appear to have been a much, much better person than they were, and therefore a much better person than you are. And so you wonder, man, how did we end up with this guy? Because this guy wasn't such a wonderful person, but how has he become so great posthumously? Well, that's the nature of life. And so you are in this situation. And so your challenges are going to be different, because you have now replaced in the life of the spouse and in the life of these children, you have replaced somebody who is close to being a saint in the Catholic tradition of not just having overcome sin, but have acquired so much graces because of their good works, they're able to share them with other people. So you have that person. So the things you do get to be compared sometimes to this newfound hero whose heroism has developed after death. That's what happens. So that has its own challenges, different from the challenges of someone who was divorced. Someone who was divorced, they may have different challenges. You may be, depending on the quality of the relationship, which we'll deal with later on, you may find that it has its own, that blended family has its own challenges because there are other people who come into play. But it's different from when your spouse has died. Premarital children, that's also different. You also have to factor in the involvement of the parent, the other parent before you came into the picture. So you're marrying someone who has a child who's 6 years old and that other parent has never been involved, or that other parent has been fully involved. You have to factor those things in. And that one who had a child, a premarital child whose parent is involved, the dynamics of that relationship are going to be different from the dynamics of a relationship where the other parent died and the other parent cannot be involved. It's the extended family that's being involved, and so on. So each of these causes influence some of the challenges and the opportunities you're going to have in your marriage. So do not assume that because the other spouse is no longer in the picture, that it's the same. Whether it's divorced, premarital, or death, it's not the same. It's not the same. You will experience the challenges differently. They may be the same in principle, but they will be experienced differently. Now, the parents of the children, here you are in a family. You are a blended family. One of the things that are going to affect us, that are going to determine what's going to happen in this relationship, is the parents of the children. You may find that there is a child. You're married. I'm married to my spouse, and there is a child or children. There are children from my spouse. Sometimes, usually, this happens with women. A woman has a child or 2 children or 3 children, and she marries with her children or with her child, and so she brings the child into the relationship. And sometimes you find that I'm not the one who has the child, or I, the man, am the one who has a child or children, and I'm bringing them into my marriage. My wife doesn't have children, so I'm the one who's bringing in children. Now, this is a situation where the child or children from the previous relationship is from one spouse. The other situation is when we have this child that I'm bringing from my previous relationship, and then we have our child together. So here we have 2 children now, one that is mine biologically, and the other one that is ours biological. Now that's another dynamic as well, that's dealing with the parenting of the children. Now, then you can have children from both spouses. In other words, my wife is bringing in a child, I'm bringing a child, or we are both bringing in 2 children, or she's bringing 2, I'm bringing 1, she's bringing 1, I'm bringing 2. Here we are, boom. We have children. We start out with children. As a result, there are certain authors who refer to blended families as instant families. Instant, because you get married, you say I do, and boom, after you say I do, you have 3 children. You started out with 1, the morning started out with you have 1, the sun is setting and you've got 2. So you both have children. Now, and the other one is when I bring my child, you bring your child, and then we have a child that belongs to us. 3. So one child has one parent. The one child, the father is my biological parent. The other child, the mother is my biological child. And the third child, both parents are the biological children. Now, the parents of these children, the interesting thing is that they will generally experience life differently, depending. They will. That's simply because we relate to our biological children differently from the way we relate to children who are not ours biological. And it's not because we are evil. It's just the way things are. It's in the nature of things. We can love them from here to kingdom come. We just relate with them differently. And they understand themselves differently. They may know that they are loved by us, but they know that they're not our children, but they know that they love us as if they were their children. So the parenthood of the children also determines what's going to happen in this family. Now, the more the parents there are, who have to be consulted for things. So when you're just going to take a trip to Cape Town or Durban, the more parents who have to be consulted, the more challenges that family is going to have to deal with. So this is just the environment. I'm talking about this, the causes and the parenting of the children. This is just the environment. This is stuff that's just there that you may not have much control over. So whatever you're going to be dealing with as a family, you are dealing with this thing based on the environment that you have. The residence of the children plays a big role. In some blended families, I have a child from my previous relationship, or my wife. We'll start with my wife. My wife, we have children. She has a child, but the child doesn't live with us. Probably the child could live with her grandparents, with the child's grandparents. Or I have a child, and my child lives with his or her mother. So there are children from previous relationships, or there's a child from a previous relationship, but this child doesn't live with us. Now, how we will operate as a blended family is different if the children don't live with us. Sometimes it's the child of one spouse that lives with us. So you find that I have my wife, this usually happens with wives, where the wife has a child. She had a child before we met, we got married, and after the marriage, then her child comes and lives with us. So that's the residence of the child. That child is here. Certain instances, she had her child, and then I had my child. We get married, and our children come and live with us. There are certain instances where, excuse me, she has a child, I have a child. We get married, but only her child comes to live with us. Mine doesn't come to live with us, sometimes because the mother of the child is not interested or whatever the case may be. But the first one we spoke about, the number 2 on your list, is a situation where only one spouse has a child. So that is a child that comes. Number 4 is when both of us have a child or have children, but only one spouse's child comes to live with us. And sometimes you'll have a situation where we both have children, and some of these children live with us. My wife can have a child. Maybe you find that the older child, maybe she has 2 children. The first child remains with the grandparent, because at this stage, if my wife we're getting married and she's 30, and she had a first child when she was 16, which means that when we are getting married, that child is probably 13, probably has been raised by the grandparents. And when we get married, the child feels, I'm staying with grandma. And at that stage, they're not calling grandma, they're calling grandma mama. So they stay with mom. And then she probably had a second child when she was 27. And that child is probably 3 now. And so this child comes to live with us. So the other child is living with the grandparents. This one lives with us. And I may have 4 children, and of the 4 children, only one comes to live with us. So it's a situation where some of the children live with us. Now, the interesting thing about the residence of the child is that the reality of life is that the child that lives here, that lives with us, if I have children, a child lives with us and the other child does not live with us, the one that lives with us can have the benefit of a father in terms of my presence in her life or his life. The father's love, they'll get the father's love, they'll get the emotional support, they'll get the benefit of me being there, the example that I am able to provide, I'm able to teach her things, I'm able to have a relationship with her that is not the same as the relationship I will have with a child that does not live with us. It's just in the nature of things. That's not going to happen. Now, you'll find that that relationship, the time we spend together, is valuable, but sometimes you can't quantify it. And I'm able to spend fuel to take her to school. I'm able to spend all kinds of bits and pieces here and there on this child. The one who doesn't live with us, I don't usually spend time with her. And because I don't usually spend a lot of time with her because we don't live together, the few times we do spend time together, I might find myself tempted to spend more money on this one because I'm trying to make up. So you'll find that these 2 children have different experiences of their father. And even when I spend, I may be even open to buying this one brand name clothing that's expensive. And then you may wonder, but why would you buy brand name clothing for this one and not for this one? Well, this one, I don't live with them. And so I'm trying to make up. I'm not saying that it's correct. So, but that's what you do. You try to, the once in a while major spending goes big, and it may buy one big noticeable item. But for the one you live with, there are many small expenses that have to do with day-to-day life. So they will experience it differently. Even the money spent will be different. You'll find that sometimes I may even be paying child support. But if I'm paying child support here of 3,000 Rand, it does not necessarily mean I'm spending 3,000 Rand on the child that lives with us here at home. Sometimes it could be less, sometimes it could be more, depending on the dynamics that are there in the family. So the residence of the child determines, one, the nature of the relationship you're going to have. It also determines the kind of spending that's going to happen. It also gets to determine the involvement of the other parent. It's different when the child lives with you. You relate with the other parent differently than when the child does not live with you. Because when the child lives with you, you have the option of consulting the other parent when it comes to spending. You may decide, look, I'm going to spend on my own child, and then that's it. But when the child doesn't live with you, you can get calls that we need money for this. Sometimes that relationship can be regulated by a court order or a parenting plan. So any of those setups, it is blended families, but the residence of the child will have an impact on how the family operates. This is still part of the environment. Then there's the issue of how the relationship ended. If the relationship ended through death, then that relationship has kind of been wrapped up neatly. It has come to the end, and it usually is followed with very generous and gracious memories. And so in that setup, the child even has a positive outlook on the father. In other words, or the mother, whomever may have passed away, that there's a positive outlook. It's even more legit to kind of remember the person because the person died. There's a lot of honor related to it, but that relationship has been wrapped up. You know, there's been closure to that relationship, and you're able to move on. The other way the relationship may have ended is through an amicable divorce. There are very few of those, but they do exist, where people part ways and there is no anger and bitterness. There's just a realization this thing doesn't work. It's not good for you. It's not good for me. None of us are benefiting from it. So let's just go our separate ways. When that happens, or sometimes people were angry, but then they went to these divorce aftercare programs to help them recover, and they've gone through it, they've completed it, and now they have a different outlook. They're able to have a civil and even friendly relationship. And in instances like those, where this happens, you will find that how the blended family operates, if there's an outside biological parent, where the relationship is amicable, where the relationship is civil, it's easier to relate, it's easier to make plans, it's easier to navigate things that have to do with the other parent. It's easier even to handle with a child who's going to call the other parent and complain that they were punished. The civility in the relationship means that is going to be handled differently. It's going to be approached differently. So how that relationship ends will have that impact. When the divorce was unpleasant and there are still bad or negative feelings, then that has its own challenges, because the things that are said about the other parent, both by probably you as the parent, biological parent in the marriage, and by the biological parent who's not in the marriage, the things we tend to say about one another to the children can be poisonous. The way we characterize one another can be poisonous. And sometimes we can be downright uncooperative. Sometimes we can decide to sabotage each other's relationships, and we can make things difficult. You hear people saying, it's not my job to make your life easier. All right. I'm not here to make their life easier. I'm not. And then you find that even though we were dealing with dropping off a child from school, or we are dealing with a child that has to go to camp, the other one still feels you've always been selfish. Like, whoa, it's been 3 years, but then for them, whatever you're doing now is a continuation of what you used to do in the marriage. And so that can seriously complicate the situation of blended families. This is the environment. Situation where you find yourself, that's how the relationship ended has an impact on how things are going to be done. Sometimes the people were not married, they were dating. Before we get to them, sometimes this divorce that happened may have been a relationship maybe due to unfaithfulness, and the other party may feel wronged. The other party may feel that you cheated on me or you abused me. And because of that, they may have what we spoke about yesterday, the equation of saying bad boyfriend, bad husband equals bad father. Therefore, they try to make it almost impossible for you to have any connection with a child because you are a bad husband. And that can make life difficult for a blended family. So whatever you're trying to do, trying to be a good father or good mother, can be messed up by the nature of the breakup. If the person felt that he's the guy, you are the woman, you cheated on him, and so the relationship ended, and you call them for child support, they can decide, I'm not paying a cent. Go drag it out of me in court. Drag me to court and try and shove your hand into down my throat and take your child support money every week. Even when the court order comes out, they don't pay the child support. Now you have to go back to court and see if you can't have a garnishee order so the money can be deducted directly from their salary. It's all kinds of complications. Why? Because the relationship did not end well and there are still bad feelings. And in that instance, everything you do gets criticized, everything you do gets challenged, and everything gets frustrated. Why? Because there are still unpleasant feelings after the breakup. And these things are going to contribute to what happens in the family. And when we don't factor them in to realize that this is just the environment, it means that in this relationship, we may end up fighting over things that are caused by the environment that we are in. And then sometimes there's very little you can do about the environment. What you can do is to decide to respond to it, and to respond to it in a very constructive way. Sometimes that you were dating somebody, this is for premarital, those blended families that were caused by premarital children. Sometimes the breakup was amicable and the people are civil and so on. And so it's not a big deal. And I know instances where you get married and the mother of the child who you had before you got married even sends the child to come and attend the wedding, and here you are, your wife is and so, or the father of the child is here helping the child, buying him a suit to attend, your wedding with your new husband, and that's it. And everything is kind of cool. There's no big deal. I remember seeing a photograph of a preschool graduation. The child was going there and they were holding their certificate in preschool. And in the photograph, it was child. And then next to the child, it was father. And then on the other side, it was mother. And next to father was stepmother. And next to mother was stepfather. Imagine that. That was happening. So the child is here and there are these two couples standing next to them. And I'm not sure what the nature of the relationship is, but I'm talking about the concept where things are okay. You live your life, I live my life, and that's fine. And we're trying to make it, the child have the best experience possible. Sometimes the dating breakup was unpleasant. And if that was unpleasant, you have all nature of hostility that come your way. All nature of hostility that come your way. And it could be similar or even different from what happens when people are divorced. But that hostility can mess up the child because the child is caught in the middle, and sometimes they don't know who to be loyal to in this fight between the two parents that now spills over and affects other people. Now imagine if this child is here and their biological parents, the breakup was not pleasant and there are still bad feelings. And everything that has to do with this child is a task, is a huge task. Whether they want to go to camp, both parents must give consent. The other one says, I'm not giving consent. They have a kid trip, they have to go to Lesotho, just here to Lesotho. But then both parents must be there for the passport and blah, blah, blah. And the other parent says, I'm not coming. And then the child may even need to forfeit going on the trip because the other parent does not want to be part of the signing of the passport. So because the child may still be a minor. So do you have this? And imagine that the sibling of this child, these are both parents. These kids are going to have a completely different experience of life because here these parents, they live together and the parents get along. And so this is part of the environment that you have as your blended family. And which means that in that situation, it may really be unreasonable to think you're going to treat the children equally. You're going to treat them the same because they are both your children. Their life experiences are completely different. And so by nature, you have to treat them differently to be able to compensate for the different things that are happening in their lives. And that's going to require a lot of explanation to them as children, for them to understand that, look, We have to do this because, you have to do this because, so that they understand that their situation is not necessarily the same. And we are still talking about the environment. We have not gotten to the actual relationship on its own. So it's something that you may have very little control over. Sometimes you can try and smooth over the consequences of an unpleasant breakup. Sometimes it works, sometimes it backfires, it doesn't work. Some people have said it's worth a try. Part of the relationship also has to do with the current relationship status of the other parent. If the other parent is dead, then it's fine. You're not really going to have much by way of problems there. And usually when the other biological parent is happily married, in other words, I have a child with an ex-wife or an ex-girlfriend, and that ex-wife or ex-girlfriend is now happily married, you'll find that the relationship we will have as people who are both married to our respective spouses, that relationship will be smooth because we are both thinking about something that's going to need to work well for our marriages. So no one is trying to be difficult to the other. We are both factoring in the fact that I know you're married. I know what goes into the marriage. I know what works for marriage. So you'll find that when someone is happy in their new marriage, they can be very cooperative because they have no reason to create problems. They have no reason to try and sabotage anything. In fact, we are basically on the same boat, in the same boat, because they don't want you to mess up the situation for their marriage, so they will try not to mess up the situation in your marriage. So you'll find that can be one of the smoothest aspects of the environment of a blended family. Sometimes you have someone who's happy in a secure relationship. They're not married yet. They're their boyfriend, they're their girlfriend, and they're happy in that relationship. And so they do not want any negative vibes in their lives from life from you. And so they try to make sure that things are pleasant, they're smooth. You know, you do your thing, I do my thing, and that's it. And it actually works. It makes it very pleasant for the relationship if someone is in the other biological parent is in a happy relationship, whether it's happily married or happily in a secure relationship. Sometimes you'll find that the other biological parent is in a relationship, but this relationship hasn't yet taken direction. It's either the relationship is still new, it's still early days, and they don't want to jeopardize it. And in some of those instances, they don't want your shortcomings to mess up this relationship. And sometimes they're hopeful that the relationship could lead to something. And when that is the case, they still do not want whatever you do to mess up the relationship. Sometimes the relationship is complicated. And when the relationship is complicated, you can't quite say it's coming or going, it's there. The nature of that relationship can determine how they relate with you as the other parent of the child that you share together. It can determine it. If they feel that relationship is not completely comfortable, it's dicey, they may want to minimize your involvement. Sometimes the minimization of your involvement could mean minimal access to the child, could mean minimal communication with the child, because they do not want your involvement with the child to jeopardize this relationship. And that could be something you wonder, but what does that have to do with me? It has happened, and so that's part of the environment we must be aware happens. Sometimes someone is in a difficult marriage, especially if that marriage has issues of insecurity. Every time you call, every time you communicate about a child, every time the child has a soccer game, in that marriage, there's a fight that, oh, you want to go and see your ex. And as a result, you'll find that this person now is trying to minimize contact because they don't want their involvement in the child's life, if it's going to involve you in any way, shape, or form, to jeopardize their marriage. They don't want that. And so you'll find that instead of both of you going to see a child's game, you may not necessarily be sitting together. They choose not to attend because you're going to be there. Sometimes they choose not to tell you about what's going to happen in the child's life because they don't want you to come. It's going to cause another problem. Because when you are here, then next thing they have to try to be civil for the sake of the child, and the other spouse is going to be like, so you miss your old boyfriend or you miss your old girlfriend. And so to try and minimize it, they don't tell you about big things. They just ask you not to attend, just send a gift. The child is going to have a big birthday and stuff like that, because they're trying to build this marriage and it feels insecure. It feels like it's not on steady footing. And so your involvement has to be minimized. And you may sometimes wonder, what do I have to do with relationship well, they're trying to make that relationship work. And because they're trying to make that relationship work, sometimes your relationship can suffer because they're prioritizing their relationship. They're not going to prioritize your relationship, obviously, for obvious reasons. They're going to prioritize their own relationship. And that sometimes happens when someone is in a difficult relationship. Same story. They can find that because they're in a difficult relationship, and sometimes that difficult relationship can mean that they are taking out their anger and frustration of the relationship. They take it out on you. So you find that they're being mistreated or badly handled by the woman in that relationship. And then they decide to take out the anger on you because as far as they're concerned, women are cruel. Or you may find that they're being treated badly by the man in that relationship or the husband in that difficult marriage. And then they decide that they're going to take it out on you because all of you are trash. So that happens in life. And you may find yourself suffering for things you did not do that were done by somebody else, but that's the environment you find yourself in. You just have to find a way of navigating it. Sometimes you have the other biological parent who may or may not be in a relationship with somebody else, but who may be hoping to rekindle a relationship with you. So you are here you are a woman, you've married, but the father of the child would like to have something with you. If not, because you're married, some of them may be hoping that you could divorce your current spouse and go back to them. Some of them may think, okay, fine, you can't divorce your spouse, it may be too much to expect, but can't we have benefits on the side? For old time's sake. And you could be a husband who has a child with an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife who might be hoping to rekindle the relationship. If it's an ex-wife, some may be thinking, you know what, I didn't realize how great you were when we were together. Maybe I was too harsh. And they think maybe, why not give it a second chance? He was mine to begin with. Or it might be an ex-girlfriend who feels, you know what, you're the one that got away. And I'm still not sure why maybe I made a mistake by breaking up with you, whatever the case may be. But here you are a man, and the ex-wife or ex-girlfriend would like to rekindle the relationship, if not the marriage itself. Then probably have a relationship with benefits, which means that when they call to talk about the child, when they communicate to talk about the child, when you meet together at the school because a child has misbehaved and the parents have been called, when you meet at a Pathfinder fair or whatever child's event, the relationship from her side or from his side, if it's a father of the child, can be very flirtatious, can be very friendly, can be very accommodative, can be very understanding, can be very playful, and that will cause other problems. Beyond the fact that it could actually lead to an affair, it can cause other problems with your spouse because you can easily feel that the friendliness that you're experiencing from your ex is good for you to maintain so that you can have a smooth relationship. You can have a smooth relationship. So you don't want there to be a fight. So when they are friendly, you also want to be friendly so that you don't jeopardize stuff. So that the child could have for the benefit of the child, so they can have friends who get along. And in the process of trying to keep the relations smooth, it appears as though you actually are enjoying the flirtation. It appears as though you may be open to the possibility of rekindling this thing. Now you have new problems with your spouse because you seem to be way too friendly with the ex, whether the ex is a guy or the ex is a girl. We've had situations where you will say, I can't come drop off the child because I have a problem. My car doesn't work. And the ex says, I have 2 cars. I can lend you a car. Or the ex comes and says, I'm going to come and drop the child with you at work or wherever we need to meet. You say, meet me somewhere, my car is broken down. Come and drop the child here and I'll take the child home. And the ex comes and says, okay, fine, brings and says, you have a problem with a car? No problem. Go and drop me off and take the car and bring it back when you are done. Now you think to yourself, oh, there are no strings attached here. And the ex says, look, I have nothing, I'm done for the day. You can use the car. I wouldn't want my child's father, I don't want my child's mother to struggle You know, you can have the car. In your mind, you're thinking it would help so much. I'll be able to do that and that and that and that. Oh, what? This car of mine that broke down had just messed up my day, but this opportunity is a golden opportunity for me to use a car. And you're thinking innocently, it's just using a car. And there you are, driving your ex's car because the ex, who is a biological parent with the other child, generously said, bring it back when you are done. I don't need it for the weekend. I'm not going anywhere. Or I have another car, so it's really not a big deal. This car is sitting there in the garage. It's not doing anything. So you might as well use it if you need it. I mean, it's there, it's paid up, it's either you use it or it stays there and collects dust. And so you sit there thinking, sure, I might as well. That's gonna create new problems, newfound problems you did not think you're going to have. It's part of the relationship. People are hoping to rekindle an old relationship. That friendliness has made a lot of people fall into a trap where now they end up having a relationship with benefits with the other biological parent. And that relationship with benefits is a new problem. This is still the environment. We have not yet dealt with how you handle whatever. We are still dealing with the environment that you are in. Sometimes the relationship of the other biological parent, they're not in a relationship. They may or may not be in a relationship, but they're hell-bent on destroying your marriage. And this happens when they feel you should not have left, or you left incorrectly, or they feel that your current spouse stole you from them. And they decide, two can play that game. If she can steal you from me, I can mess up that relationship. And they decide to destroy it. Man, when they decide to destroy, these are the ones who call in the morning, 2 a.m. to tell you the child has got a fever. And you wonder, what are you going to do at 2 a.m.? And then they say the child needs to go to the hospital and I don't have transport, my car doesn't work. All kinds of things, and you fight. And even if you decide, I'm not coming, call the ambulance, you've lost your sleep. Your sleep is gone for the day. And then this one will keep on calling. Why is she calling? And I don't know, she's telling me about a child. But sometimes you jump up and go and they do it at awkward times. Sometimes they come to your place of work to come and demand money. They are here to demand money from a place of work, or they create all kinds of problems for you in different setups. Now, this happens because they have a problem with you, and they are vengeful. That's gonna create its own problems, because your spouse, if they do not understand the concept of the relationship of a blended family, could think that this is just too much work and it's not worth it. So that can happen. The current relationship status of the other parent is a part of the environment that your blended family has. The financial position of the other biological parent. Sometimes the other biological parent died, but the estate of the biological parent who died is able to finance the lives of the children. In other words, they died with a will and investments, and the children's fees are sorted out. Money comes out regularly for them to have pocket money, to buy clothes. So financially, these kids are okay. The biological parent who has died kind of provided for them. And that is a blessing. And in certain instances, you are able to dip into the money of the deceased parent of these children to try and patch up for the other children whose parents are alive but struggling. So you find that that's the financial situation of the parent who has died. So being dead does not mean that you cannot be able to provide financially. You can die and be able to provide financially through estates and wills and all that kind of planning. And if you have not done estate planning as a couple, please go and do some estate planning. Even if you're single, if you've got assets, go do estate planning. Decide what you want your assets to do. If you're in the event you were to die next week, what should happen? If you say you don't plan to die next week, well, very few people actually pencil it and say 16th July, no, people don't usually do that. It happens. So do the estate planning thing. It will be very beneficial. When we started doing estate planning with my wife and we had to sit with the planners, you discovered a lot of things about yourself and what your options are, what you want. That process also determines who would take over the kids and how would they be provided for, what packages, instruments, insurance and investment instruments would you need to take care of certain debts and certain costs after you've died. Beautiful thing. consider estate planning. If you had not done it, it's not a waste of time, it's not a waste of money. When you die, those who remain behind will thank you. And I'm not just talking about life cover and funeral benefits. I'm talking estate planning, something bigger than that. Now, sometimes the biological parent who died without an estate to finance their children. And which means that now you here in this marriage are going to have to finance the children of that person who passed away without leaving an estate for them to be provided for. Sometimes you are divorced and the other biological parent is unemployed, which means you're also going to have to cover in issues of expenses. And sometimes because the person is unemployed and therefore cannot contribute financially, we're going to have other issues of involvement and their philosophies. We're going to deal with those later on. Sometimes you can have someone who's divorced, but they are living hand to mouth financially, salary payday to payday. So a week after payday, their money is gone, finished. And so these are the people, when you say you need child support, they look at you and they're like, phew. Or you say we need to increase the child support with another 200 rand. They're like, 200. And they're not being funny. They don't have it. They just don't have it. They're living. If they're going to do that, someone is not going to get paid. So they'll pay you the money this month. Next month they don't pay you because they need to pay the person they did not pay or the institution they did not pay last month. So the living from hand to mouth means that some of the things you're going to say, the person is under. How can you be a mother and not pay regular child support? Well, if you cannot pay regular child support for your child and you're a mother, it does not always mean you're irresponsible. Sometimes you just don't have the money. You're living hand to mouth. Sometimes you can be divorced and the other parent is doing very well. Now, this is the problem here. When the other parent is doing very well, that parent has the capacity. You have 3 children, 1 from the one you divorced and 2 from this marriage. This one from that father can have brand name clothing that the others don't have. This one from that other father can be going to expensive holiday destinations with the other biological parent during school holidays that the others can't afford. They can have toys that the others can't afford. They can have phones the others can't afford. They can have a complete experience of life that the others can't afford, even though they live in your house. And you can't even say, I can't have a child who's going to have an iPhone 11 when I am trying to get my iPhone 6 repaired. Is as a sellotape at the bottom that keeps it together. My other kids are working on phones that have minimal features. And here I have my child whose father or mother is well off, having the latest of everything. My child has brand name clothing. My child has more money in his bank account or in her bank account than I have. And that's your experience. Your child can afford, if they want to go and eat out, they can order in. They've got Uber. Uber Eats comes to deliver food 2 days before your payday. The child still has got money. Why? Because the other parent is well off. And that affects your life here. It affects the dynamics between the siblings. It affects their attitude towards you and the other parent, and the fact that they may feel they would rather be with the other parent than be with you. All kinds of problems come just from the financial position of the other parent. Sometimes you broke up with this person, it's a premarital child, and one is unemployed. Other one is unemployed. Yes, someone is asking if that wouldn't cause siblings hatred. Yes, it would cause sibling hatred, because the other ones will always feel you think you're better than us, and the other one would feel, well, it's not that I'm better, it's just that I have a better life. It can, jealousy, rivalry, it can cause all kinds of problems, and they can easily disrespect your current husband, because your current husband is not the kind of man that their father is. Yeah, and the well-to-do ex can even pay the entire school fees of the child, and say you can pay your half when you can. And last thing you want is to be indebted to an ex. Sometimes your child children are attending, the other 2 are attending government schools because that's what you can afford, and the first one, who's well-to-do parent, is attending top-notch schools that well-to-do parent can afford. These may be using public transport, but this one can have special transport arranged that comes to pick them up. Yours can't afford to go do the sporting trips, but this child is able to do sports like golf and have expensive golf clubs and have some form of membership in some golf clubs. And you find that it's a completely different experience of life. They live under you because either you are the mother and that father is saying, you can't stop me from spending on my child. Your financial situation is not my problem. Just because you and your husband can't afford to do your thing, don't make your problem my problem. So it can be a complicated thing. Sometimes you broke up with a person, they're unemployed. And if they were unemployed, or if they've always been unemployed, that means that they've never really contributed financially. Sometimes they used to be employed and they used to contribute, and now they're just unemployed now. So it may be a temporal thing. And sometimes you have broke up with this person who is the mother or father of your child, and they are also surviving. They are doing mouth-to-mouth living. They are struggling to pay for this and that. They need at 6 months notice if the child is going to go for a camp. They need money to raise the 500 rand because it's just not there. So you find that the living month to month also affects your planning, because sometimes in the marriage you'll be saying, but why isn't that guy paying child support? Because that money would have done this. He's supposed to pay. So you end up fighting about you chasing the other one to pay child support. All because this is the environment that you are in. Sometimes you broke up with this person. This happens. You break up with somebody and they go on to be well-to-do. You've broken up years ago, but man, they are well off. And this child is on cloud nine. And there's a downside of a child who when they go to visit their mother, when they go to visit their father, more often than not, this is when they visit their father. They go visit their father. The life they live there is such that they don't really want to come back because there it's great. And you know what? They can be disrespectful here, hoping that one day you chase them away, then they can go and live with their father who gives them a great life. And sometimes they don't factor in the idea that the parent who's not here, and sometimes in certain instances, it's the mother who's not here, and they're able to shower them with all kinds of attention and gifts or whatever, and money when they are there. But they may not necessarily have the lifestyle to be able to continue with this, on a regular basis, but they can afford to do it for a weekend, they can do it for a week, they can do it for a holiday. And they all therefore always look like they're better parent, they're the better parent than you. And the child starts thinking, if I was living with my mom, if I was living with my dad, life would have been like this and this and this and this and that. So this is part of your environment. The financial position of the other biological parent is part of the environment of your biological parent. And the other one is your financial position. Sometimes the other biological parent is doing well and you're unemployed. You're unemployed. You can't compete. That's it. And so it messes up your options. It determines where you live. Sometimes you're unemployed, you live with your parents, or you're unemployed, you live in the back room of a relative, or you're unemployed, you live in an informal settlement, or you're unemployed and you have an RTP house, whatever the case may be. And the other one is sorted financially. And so your child is here wondering if it is not selfish for you to insist that the child lives with you when the child could be having a much better life with the other parent who's doing much better than you financially. Same applies when you're living hand to mouth. When you're living hand to mouth as a couple, you are here living hand to mouth. You're struggling day to day. Part of the things you end up fighting over, stressing over, are issues of, you know what, if that man would pay child support, we would not be where we are today. It would bring such a slight relief. It will bring such a relief if your mother were to pay child support. And sometimes you get to a point where the frustration of living hand to mouth financially has caused many people to say to a child, if your father was responsible, if he was not irresponsible, if he cared about you, he would have paid for this, he would have paid for that. Now you are frustrated because financially you can't carry this thing on your own. And you may think that I'm not supposed to carry the thing. The child belongs to both of us. Yeah, but there's someone next door or someone else who is able to carry this thing financially, and they're not chasing after the other parent who's not paying. The frustration now doesn't come from the fact that that one has not paid the 500 rand or the 2,000 rand or the 1,500 or the 3,000, depending how much the child support is. The frustration is not the money has not been paid. The frustration comes from the fact that you needed the money to be paid. That's where the frustration comes from. And because you needed the money, sometimes you've budgeted for the money. You know that you've even made promises, you've made commitments. that are connected to this child support money coming in. And now when the money does not come in, it's messing up other areas of your life. And of course, that frustration is going to cause you to say things that you don't mean, things you should not have said. And this is how we have said hurtful things to children about their parents, the other parent. Sometimes in anger, we say you are just like that irresponsible father. Sometimes we say that he's a dog, blah, 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 and all kinds of things, rubbish, he's filth, he's trash. When you say that to the child or in the hearing of the child about their biological parent, we are invariably saying it about them as well, because this is the child of that person. You can say as an adult, no, I'm not talking about you, my child, I'm talking about that one. But in the child's mind, you are talking about my parent. This is the reason why. This is the reason why when you want to insult a young man, you insult his mother. Why? Because what you are saying about his mother, you are saying it about him, and we wonder why in our languages serious swear words and serious insults is when people insult your parents. They insult your mother, and then they say your mother is like this, and young men are attached to their mothers, and they fight and they stab people, they do all kinds of things. Why? Because it was not just about my mother, it was a reflection on me. But somehow we don't get it, that the things we say to our children about their parents also become a reflection on them because they are here. So sometimes living hand to mouth can mean that you can make a big deal about the fact that the person paid child support, but it's 200 needed it. You need it. You're living hand to mouth. You need every cent. Sometimes you're well-to-do. If you're doing well financially, you don't care whether they paid or not. You are fine. In fact, all you basically want from this one, usually these parents who are well off, from the other parent, all they need with the other parent, they're not trying to get your money. These are the ones who simply say, look, I know you don't have money, or I know you're irresponsible. Call your child. If you don't have data, say so. I'll buy you data. Or I'll buy my child data so that my child can call, but call them, visit them. These are the parents who are now trying to prioritize other aspects of the child, the mental health, the emotional health of their child. They just want some form of involvement because financially they're okay, and they're not going to chase after you. And when they deal with you with the level of, you know what, you're just messing things up. There isn't the same anger of someone who needs the 200 rand you did not pay. It's a different approach. Why? Because your financial situation is part of the environment of your blended family. Part of this environment are the philosophies of parenting non-resident children. If the child doesn't live with you, then the next question is, what's your philosophy of your involvement in the life of a child that does not live with you? What's your philosophy? Some people believe if the child does not live with me, then mainly what's expected of me is money. That's it. If I pay the school fees, pay child support, I'm fine. I don't want to mess up with you. I don't mess up with your marriage. I'll just pay what I need to pay. If that's your philosophy, you will then expect the other parent to simply pay money and not get involved. That's part of the environment of the marriage. And when they're trying to get involved in other ways, you feel that they're meddling. You feel that they're trying to sabotage this marriage because in your mind, pay child support and leave the child alone. I'm married, don't mess with my marriage. That's all I need from you, child support. So your philosophy can be a philosophy that makes you hostile to the other parent, that makes you try and minimize the opportunities of this child having a relationship with that parent. Why? Because you feel in your mind, your philosophy is when you don't live with a child, pay child support and that's it. Sometimes it could be the philosophy of your spouse. Okay, your spouse could have the same philosophy to say that when the child doesn't live with you, pay child support. If that's your spouse's philosophy, then your spouse is not going to understand why the other parent wants to come and spend the weekend with your child, wants the child to come and spend the weekend with them, wants the child to go on holidays for them, wants the child to attend family gatherings of the other biological child. Your spouse will not understand it because their philosophy is when the child doesn't live with you, just pay child support and stay out of the picture. And so as you are trying to say, no, it's his father, no, it's his mother, I want them to have a relationship, it's as if you're trying backdoor access to the ex. That's That's the philosophy of the other spouse. If the philosophy of the spouse is pay child support and walk away, you will end up having those fights and you wonder, where does this thing come from? I'm not trying to get back together with my ex. And the philosophy of pay child support and not get involved is what's informing the suspicion that when you want your child to have a relationship with the other biological parent, there's more to it than that. That's informed by the philosophy. If the other biological parent is the one who has that philosophy that when you have a child who doesn't live with you, just pay child support and stay away. If the other biological parent has that philosophy, that's what they will do. You will fight from here to kingdom come, trying to get them to be involved, trying to get them to call the child, trying to get them to spend time with the child, trying to get them to come to a child's major events. You will try in vain because their philosophy is, I don't live with a child. Because I don't live with the child, I will pay. And then after I've paid, I'm sorted. They're the ones who even say, let's just do this thing so that it just happens automatically. End of the month, my phone will beep, your phone will beep, and that's it. We don't need to communicate. Your child is there. I'm paying, I'm meeting my responsibilities, and they stay away. That philosophy is going to impact how you do. It's going to impact the child's life. It's going to impact how you relate. It's going to impact your levels of frustration with the other spouse. Same applies. If your philosophy is that just because you don't live with the child doesn't mean you can only pay child support, you must be involved in the child's life as much as you possibly can. If that's your philosophy, that's what you will expect from the other parent, other biological parent. That will be your expectations. That will be your fights with the other parent, fights about involvement. And so you'll find that if it is your philosophy that the child must have the benefit of both parents, you will try and work towards that. You will try and facilitate it. Now, problem is this. If that's your philosophy, but it's not your spouse's philosophy, problem. It's good if it's your philosophy and your spouse's philosophy, then you can work together to make sure that this relationship is there. You'll find that you can take turns. You know, I'm late picking up so-and-so, dropping off with the other parent, and your spouse will assist because you both have the same philosophy that you want the other parent to be involved in the child's life. So it's smooth for you. It's smooth. And you are able to facilitate it and make it work. It's just normal part of life. The problem is when the two of you have that philosophy, but the other biological parent does not have it. Then you are trying in vain. You are both frustrated, but it's good because you're frustrated together. You both have the same problem. You'll both wonder, I wonder what happened. That guy needs Jesus. That one needs Jesus. But it's a common problem that you have, and it's okay. And it's okay. Now, the challenge is when your spouse believes that in the child's life, and you don't. It's your biological child. And you want the other one to stay away, and your spouse believes, let the child have a relationship with their father. Let the child have a relationship with their mother. That's going to cause its own problems because this one has a philosophy that's different from you, and they do not understand why you are disadvantaging the child so much. And so it doesn't have to be a major problem, but a problem could be there. Another challenge is if the other biological parent wants to be involved, but you and your spouse feel pay money and stay away. Then you have new problems, or the spouse may even take you to the magistrate's courts to try and put together a parenting plan. You're going to have a problem of the other spouse wants to come and visit, wants to be involved in the child's life, and you both wonder what's going on. Is this person trying to sabotage the marriage? Is this trying to rekindle old relationships? And this frustration and suspicion can spill over to the things you say up to your child about what's going on with the other parent. So the philosophies of parenting can have a part of the environment of this relationship, and they can have an impact on how things happen in this relationship. Then you have sets of values. The values that you have in your marriage and the values that the other biological parents have are also part of your environment. You can have different beliefs from them, and you do things differently. I remember dealing with a couple of situations where this young lady had a child with a man who, the young lady is Adventist. The ex-boyfriend had a child with is not necessarily religious. There's a church in their home, but they were never serious growing up, so it's not a big deal. When the child growing up, now this child was an adventurer at the time. Their parenting plan had certain weekends over with the father, certain weekends over with the mother. But on the weekends where the child was with the father, they were able to go to the mall Sabbath morning. They were able to go to the stadium to watch football on Sabbath afternoons. And so the life was completely different. They were able to watch movies until late on Friday night. It was always just great. It was fun. He was a very involved father. He really believed in being involved in your child's life. But for this one, the problem was when the child came back, they did not understand the following, because last week I was with my dad and we did this. Now I don't understand why I can't do these things when I'm here. So mommy's busy telling me, no, you can't do these things. It's a Sabbath. We can't be going to the stadium. It's a Sabbath, blah, 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 blah. The child feels, you know what, when I'm with dad, they go with dad. So you know what happens? Then the child believes that I could have played sports if I could be with dad. If I can be with dad, dad doesn't have a problem with me going to play sports on Saturday. The mother's like, no, but that's not what we believe. Yeah, the different sets of beliefs that you have as the parents are part of the environment you have. They're part of the challenges you're going to have. You are raising a child and you're telling this child that you shouldn't lie. Tell the child that you shouldn't lie. All right, fine. That's what you're trying to teach. Child goes to the parents, the other parent for the weekend. And the other parent, someone comes knocking and says, tell them I'm not here. And the child goes and says, daddy's not here or mom is not here. You are busy trying to cultivate honesty. On the other side, there's this philosophy that no, they are white lies. They're not very bad. And they are blue lies. Those are terrible. So you find that the values, the way you operate is completely different. Work ethic. Here you're trying to make sure that the child works. Your child, everything. You're teaching them how to work. When they get to the other side, there's someone, housekeeper, who does everything. They don't have to make up their bed. They don't have to pick up for themselves. Someone is there who's going to do it for them. So it's possible that you have two completely different values. Your values and the other biological parents' values are completely different. And because of those differences, you are constantly trying to undo what the other one did last week, and then try and implement what you want to do. And then as it's picking up, they go to the other parent, and the other parent gets there, flushes down what you tried to do. So you have this constant, and you wonder, how do you resolve it? Well, it's a challenge. You have to work it. You have to try and navigate it. But that's part of your environment, because you, as much to choose your own values, you do not have the power to choose values for the other biological parent. You don't. And they will not always take kindly to you telling them how to live their lives and what to do when the child is with them. Problem. So it's part of the environment of the family. Now, these are areas of friction. And after this, we'll probably call it the day for today. I'm hoping that we'll probably have another opportunity to delve more into blended families. It's a complex topic. Primary relationships. When you are in a blended family, the primary relationship is the children. They are the primary people. In your stereotypical family of mother, father, and their children, the primary relationship is the marriage. The marriage is the primary relationship. You try and secure this one, the kids feel secure, everything flows from this marriage. Once you do blended families, the primary relationship is the children, because the children are coming to this thing, and when the children are miserable in this marriage, you will both invariably be miserable. That's it. So you have to try and prioritize it. You have to try and prioritize this relationship of the children and make sure they come together with you. And I would even say to someone who's considering getting married to somebody who has got children, or you have got children, the other person's got children. If the children are in your adventurer age, they are 6, 7, 8 years and teenagers, as you are preparing to have this, talk to whoever's doing your premarital counseling to have a session with the children to open their minds to what they're going to be getting into. This is what blended families do. This is what blended families look like. These are the implications of being part of a blended family, so that the kids can have somebody they can ask, how then will my other family, other father or mother plug into this whole situation? Especially the ones you are going to live with. It's important they be part of that, because they are going to be the new relationship. You'll find that these children now, when I come into this marriage with my children, I naturally have a primary loyalty to my child, my biological child that is here. And so we are in this relationship. And because the other parent is not here, there is a natural compensation on the biological parent. The natural compensation could mean I am softer, I'm more lenient to my child, because I'm trying to compensate for the fact that the other parent is not here. My child is living with a stepfather or a stepmother. So I try and compensate for that. Sometimes I can try and prove that I'm not being, I'm not playing favorites, that I'm treating my child as any other child. And I can do that in such a way that my child feels abandoned in this relationship. Because remember, you wanted this thing, your child didn't want it. So you are in this thing, and the child feels abandoned because now you are siding with your spouse against your child. So as a biological parent, you find that you are in this situation where you have a child who expects you to be in their corner, and you have a spouse who expects you to be in their corner. You are here as a biological parent. And so the primary relationship of the marriage is the child. You need to find a way in which the children, they come on board, the ones you live with at the very least, they come on board with this blended family story. When that happens, you are able to enjoy your relationship as the couple. When the kids are not on board, when they are rebellious, when they are unhappy, when they are miserable, even though you deal with that in the lounge, when you come back to the room, it spills over. That's the primary relationship. Another area of friction is going to be your identity. The identity of, I marry a girl. I marry a woman who has her own child. Let's assume this woman has her own child. She's Miss Mchonja. I marry Viewer. And then she's got her own child. Let's say her child's name is Abongile. Fine. In this marriage, when we deal with family matters, are we going to treat Abongile as a Lupondwana? Are we going to treat her as a Mchonji? Or are we going to treat her as, let's assume the biological father is Fanikerk, or we're going to treat her as a Fanikerk? Here, when she identifies home, what is home for her? Is home for her the Lupondwanas? Is home for her the Mchonchis, her mother's family? Is home for her the Fanikerks, the biological father's family? That identity is an identity that this child has to resolve, that we have to help resolve. Now, depending on what we think, some people feel, I married you and your child, this Abongile must be a Lupondwana, and Abongile may rebel. Or Abongile, someone may feel that you had this child before you got married, this child is a Mchonji, must identify there. So when I list my children, I don't start counting with Abongile, I start with the one we are going to have. I may even believe that a child belongs to his or her biological father's home. So I will believe that Abongile is neither a Lupondwana nor a Mchonji. Abongile is a Fanikerk. Now, the issues of identity require us that we sit and discuss and come to the conclusion. The best case scenario is for me to understand that Abongile is probably a Mchonji, or probably a Fanikerk, and be at peace with the fact that I'm raising a Fanikerk in my house. I'm a Lupondwana and I'm raising a Fanikerk. And raising a Fanikerk or raising a Mchonji as a Lupondwana means that certain things that I will say and communicate, it means that when I'm saying thank you to this Mchonji, I am going to have to probably call him or her by her clan names, which are not Lupondwana. My children, I'll say, I'm trying to praise them. I'm trying to thank them. They've done well. But when it comes to this one, I can't say because that's not what their clan name is. So the issue of identity can be a cause of friction in the relationship, especially if the two of you are not on the same page. My dad looks like, you're not my father. And when she refuses to call me daddy or call me her father, then I have an issue that Abongile has not accepted me. No, I'm not Abongile's father. Abongile knows her father. And the fact that she wants to maintain a father and call me uncle or call me boot or call me whatever, I call everything and call other things other than father, does not mean she has not accepted me. It simply means that she knows who her father is. And to try and force a child to call you mama or call you dada or call you whatever because it's a new relationship, it's unreasonable. This child, you're not here to replace their biological parent. So the identity of this child, of these children, can be an issue in the blended family. And it requires that you sit down and make sure that you don't mess up the child's identity as a couple. And so my counsel on this matter would simply be this: do not force your children to adopt the identity of the new marriage. It is okay if they maintain the identity of their biological fathers, if that's what they do, or grandparents, whatever identity they had before the marriage. It's okay if they maintain it. Doesn't mean they don't love you, doesn't mean they have not accepted it. It simply means that's who they are. That's their identity. That's how they choose to identify. And don't try and say, no, maybe over time they will switch. No. The fact that they love your husband as a woman, the fact that your child loves your husband, doesn't mean they will call him daddy. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with that. Leave them. Some may not. It's okay. Sometimes you can marry with two children. One child says daddy, the other one says booty. And it's fine, because that's how they choose to identify. So do not force matters. Make sure that the children are able to survive and have a home. Remember, you are, to the children, you are parents. Try and make sure that they have a home. And in this home, because it's blended, it's possible that they are going to say, I was raised by my mother and her husband. And that's fine. I was raised by my father and his wife. It's okay. Create a home. Another area of friction is going to be discipline. Sometimes we think that I'm going to treat them as if they are my own. Treat them as though they are own. They're not your own. They know they're not your own. And when you're being strict with a child that's not yours biologically, it comes across as though you are being cruel. That may be the natural you. Some people are strict. My wife is stricter than I am with the kids. She wants, Avia's got way more order than I do. And so she can be strict with her kids. Now imagine someone who is strict with their own biological kids. You do the exact same thing to somebody else's child, to your stepchild. That exact same thing comes across as cruel. It feels cruel to the child who's being disciplined by you, and it looks cruel to the biological parent who's watching. And to someone who's going to be told what you did, it feels, why? Because it's not your biological child. So when it comes to matters of discipline, that philosophy that I'm dealing with a child, I'm treating her as if they are my own children, does not work. Because, excuse me, with your own flesh and blood, they understand that is like this. It's like when we deal with in-laws. When we fight, when there's a problem at my home and they want me to contribute money and I don't want to contribute, they're going to have a big event for ancestors and we're not going to contribute. If my wife is the one who's going to tell them that we don't have money to contribute, they have a problem with, hey, and who is this one coming to tell us how money is going to be spent? And they will always remember that this one did not want to contribute. But if I'm the one who's going to say to them, sorry, I'm not going to contribute, then it's completely different. If my parents are meddling in the relationship and my wife tells my mother that you are meddling with my marriage, guess what? Then my mother is going to feel that my wife is being uppity. My wife is being problematic. My wife is being arrogant. Who does she think she is? It's better if I'm the one who tells my mother, Mama, now you're going too far. Even though she may feel unhappy about the whole thing, but she will always be forgiving to me because of the biological connection. Same applies when it comes to discipline. Our children, we can be as strict as we want to our own biological children. They will always understand. The biology will always allow them. The biology will always allow them to be more generous in understanding and explaining the fact that I was harsh or strict. They will grow up saying, oh, my dad was strict. You do that. Mother or stepfather was strict. My stepmother or stepfather was cruel. So when it comes to discipline, understand that the primary person who's going to be responsible for discipline, the primary person who's going to be responsible for discipline is the biological parent. Why is the biological parent the primary person responsible for discipline? It's because they are able to achieve a lot more. They are able to achieve a lot more because the biological connection allows a lot of leeway. So when it comes to discipline, don't think you're going to do it the same way. Don't think that you're going to treat the one who's your stepchild and the one who's a biological child the same. It doesn't work that way. Not in the world of blended families. You have to adjust. You may even have different approaches to the different kids because of the situations. The other area of friction is going to be finances. We've touched on this a little bit. Finances, how you spend on the children here, because you may decide that you're going to spend, you are here, I'm here, my wife is here, we have 3 children in the house. One child is, one child, I brought one, we have children, 3 children between the 2 of us. She brought one of her child into the marriage. We have a child together. I have a child that lives there. How we spend on the 3 children is different. the experience of life that these children will be different. Why? Because these children here, 2 children here in our house, depend on our salaries. But the third one depends on these salaries. We have no control over that spending here. The finances will sometimes be a cause of friction, especially if the other parent is not pulling their weight. Another thing, stereotypes and perceptions. Walk into a relationship. Unfortunately, there's a stereotype against stepmothers. So in other words, when you are raising a child, we're already assuming that you're probably cruel as a stepmother. So we're just waiting for occasions to confirm it. Those stereotypes and perceptions mean you will generally not get a fair assessment of what you are doing, especially as a stepmother. You will not have a fair assessment. Your children will be able to, when they've grown up, your stepchildren, may when they become adults, they might be able to look back and say, thank you, they do well. At that stage, because they've matured, they are able to appreciate the effort you put into it. But right now, while you're doing it, there are stereotypes and perceptions we have that you are doing it because it's not your child. If it was a child, you would not have done that. We will say those things, we will make those comments because there are stereotypes that mess you up as a stepmother. And sometimes those stereotypes affect how the children respond to you, how they handle your correction and your discipline. They are operating on that stereotype. That's what happens. Blended families are a tricky one, very, very tricky situation. And in that case, I would say, be aware of the stereotypes. Don't let them hamstrung you, but try and avoid the usual pitfalls of saying a stereotype is going to force a child to work extra. You may say, this is the older one, of course she's going to work more. Try something different, because you do not want to act in a way that reinforces those stereotypes, because it's going to affect how the other spouse feels. It's going to affect how the child feels, and you will have problems you did not intend to have. Your role in your spouse's life. Sometimes you'll feel that we are in here together, me and my spouse, we are raising these children. My role is to be a parent to all these children. This is what I'd like you to remember. Your role in your spouse's life, to a very large degree, is to help your spouse raise her children or his children. If I married a woman who's got her own child, I'm here to be a pillar of support to her. So I'm the person who's in her corner, but I'm letting her be the lead parent when it comes to discipline. That's it. And when she's frustrated by the children, I'm in her corner. I'm not assisting with the fighting. I'm the most stress-free person to her concerning the other child. I am the other person who in her life, when her biological child, my stepchild, starts smoking, we can't both explode. Let her explode. Your job is to comfort her, because you are married to her. Your job is to comfort her, to encourage her, to find out what support can you provide to her. That is it. No, talk to him. You go to the guy. Don't approach it as if you are a father, because you're not the father. Hey, here you've started smoking. Yeah. Because what are you here? You're a step parent. Your primary function is your wife. Help your wife raise her child. So you're providing finances, you're providing transport. The things you are providing for the children is support for the wife, so that she can be able to say, you have helped me raise my children. I raised my children with you. You become a blessing to your spouse who's raising a child without the other involvement of a biological parent. That's your primary role. So your primary role is not to stress about the children, kick and scream and make that fuss. Your role, be in your spouse's corner. Let the spouse know that they are going to run to you when they have problems with this child of theirs that they brought to the marriage. They run to you. Why? Because you are the step parent. You are the one who's able to stand from a distance and say, how can I help? No, this child, the other one was, her father was supposed to pick her up. Now he's giving me stories that the child is broken, the car broke down, blah, 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 blah. He's irresponsible. And you ask, so how can I help? Do you want us to go drop the child off? You are being helpful. Do you have to go to the child or drop the child off? No, you don't have to. But you are trying to relieve stress here for your spouse. So remember, when you are a step parent, be a blessing to your spouse who is raising their biological children here in this house. That's what you are, blessing. Stepchild, you are probably going to be that aunt or uncle who doesn't completely operate as a father, but that aunt or uncle who is there, always there for the child, who is there to assist. The primary disciplinarian is your spouse, the biological parent, but you are the ones that hopefully they'll be able to confide in, to say this is what happens, because you are not going to react as a parent. You're not going to react as a biological parent. You'll react as the aunt or uncle who's cool, who gets along. You gets along with my biological parent. That's your role. You provide that kind of support, because remember, the primary disciplinarian is the mother. You are going to be that kind of person who's here in the home, who loves the child, who's there to support the child, loves the parent, there to support the parent, who's not an impossible person to live with. You may be that strict and firm person with your biological children. Now the question is this: someone's going to ask, is it okay to treat children in the same house differently? And the response is, they're in different situations. Of course it's okay. That's how you're going to be able to succeed. Blended families are a tricky business. Tricky business, but they can succeed. When you have an opportunity, the person who's listening now, who's in a blended family, when you have the opportunity, contact Pastor Rapiti. His wife has written a book on blended families. Good book. She's a pastor. He is a retiree in the TOC. I'm not sure where they live right now. She's written a good book on blended families. See if you can get it. And she takes the approach of trying to help blended families succeed. Read as much as you possibly can. The beauty of that book, as you read it, you realize that the context, the background is someone who writes from our situation. It's not necessarily writing from the situation in the United States or the United Kingdom, but necessarily from the South African situation. So it will be very helpful. If you're in a blended family, read. Attend as many seminars and workshops on blended families as possible, because you cannot simply assume because it works in a stereotypical family, it's going to work in your family as a blended family. So those are some of the dynamics that deal with the blend. Today, we've only dealt with the environment you find yourself in and your areas of friction. There's still a lot more to deal with when it comes to blended families. Now, last thing, does God love people in blended families? Yes, he does. When we spoke about different types of families, God and my type of family, I mentioned that Jesus was in a blended family. Mary was his biological mother, but Joseph was not his biological father. And they grew up, and I've always found the example of Joseph, who's able to raise a child. And when you look at the Bible, you find that the primary parent is Mary. Even when Jesus was lost for 3 days and he was in the temple, they couldn't find him. The lead parent who is talking to Jesus, who is the one who's trying to find out, where were you? We were worried about you, is Mary. It seems as if Joseph is playing a supportive role. Mary is the one who says, your father and I were looking at you, looking for you. She's the lead parent here, but Joseph is there to provide support. It's an amazing, amazing thing. So if the Lord could have chosen and a model of a blended family when he wanted to come to the world, you have no reason to believe that God does not love you and does not care for your type of family. He does. And with his help, you can make a success of a blended family. But he's not going to do everything. We have to do our part, and he will do his part. And we can succeed. You can look back at the children who are now adults and say, we did our best. With the help of the Lord, this is what we did, and we are happy with the outcome. So I pray that the Lord will bless you if you are in blended families. And I pray that if you have a family member who has a blended family, you'll be more understanding. You'll be more understanding. And I hope that if you are in a blended family, you'll be more gracious to one another, understanding that you are in very, very difficult ground. And that difficult ground requires that the two of you treat each other with grace, that you give each other leeway, that you give each other the benefit of the doubt, that you understand that the situation you are in means you will be able to say and do things that you did not mean simply because you were under pressure. You need to treat each other with extra grace when you're a blended family. You will need it, both of you. Thank you very much, and may God richly bless you. Sorry for a difficult topic. Someone said it was heavy, but that's the nature of the topic of blended families. Thank you.
Thank you, Fundis. Thank you very much. We will go to questions immediately. The first question that comes up is that how do you deal with a spouse who entertains the ex and the spouse mingling in your marriage by using the children? At times, he's more inclined to the children's wayward behavior perpetrated by the ex-spouse, he or she has indicated intentions of rekindling a failed marriage, but the spouse is in denial.
The issue, see the problem here is that environment we spoke about. You see, these are mostly the environmental issues, and you'll find that the best approach is for you to have a conversation. If you can't have a conversation, probably get a third person to try and assist, and the third person would be a counselor, a therapist, which would be able to assist you, or probably even get a pastor who's able and willing to assist. And the purpose here is for you to sit down and identify your environment, because sometimes the reason why the spouse may be in denial may be that they don't understand that there's a basic environment that comes with being in a blended family. So if you look at the different slides we did on the environment, we would simply say, look at these different things. What is the current relationship status? Are they interested? You simply pick up the different aspects, finances and all of it, and you say, what are the implications of these? And as you deal with them, they're able to say, okay, if because the spouse who's in denial will say, if the other one is trying to rekindle the relationship, then this is what they would do. How do we deal with it? If we have different values, and this child has a wayward behavior because of the impact of the other parent, how do we deal with it? So at this stage, it may be that the spouse has not yet seen the full picture. All they're trying to do, and what happens in many cases, all they're trying to do is to try and keep things as civil as possible so that their life is not terribly impacted. But once they understand that there's a bigger environment that can mess up their marriage, then they might be able to look at it differently. That's what I would say. I will not. There's always a possibility that their spouse may actually be considering leaving, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. But more often than not, what I have found that the spouse is just not aware that there's more to the environment of a blended family than just someone paying child support and staying in the child's life. That's what I would say. Let's see if we can help that person, either through a therapist or through a pastor.
Okay, thanks, Fundis. I think the next one, it's about Christ being born from a blended family. You've dealt with that quite thoroughly. And also the other comment says that we need more time for this type of a topic. Now, the question is, if a lady marries a man that brings a child into the marriage, is it fair to think that the primary responsibility of providing financially should rest with the husband?
If a lady marries a man that brings a child into the relationship, is it fair to think that the primary responsibility is with the husband, the one who brought the child?
Yes.
This is it. When you get married to somebody, one of the things you have to discuss before you get married is your responsibilities. These are my responsibilities. These are my obligations. Part of your responsibilities are your children. And you discuss how that's going to happen, how the financing is going to happen. Because even if it was a woman who brought a child, the primary responsibility would naturally be with the biological parents. But now that you've chosen to get married, you have chosen to live together. You have chosen to approach life's challenges together. That's what the decision to get married is to approach life's challenges together. And one of those life's challenges is the fact that there is a child with a biological parent over there. And if you have chosen to get married together, you've chosen to be life partners in dealing with this. So I would say the fair thing is for you to sit down and decide, how do you deal with this challenge that you both are facing of this child that is in this marriage that has a biological parent. Now, you can't say this child is not your responsibility. If you felt that way, you should have married someone who does not have a child. The fact that you chose to marry someone who has the child means that you are aware of this responsibility and you can't run away from it now because this responsibility is not going anywhere. In fact, trying to run away with it could mean that you may end up with a problem that is going to be a challenge to the quality of your marriage. So my advice, sit down and have the conversation and see how can the two of you, now you've become one, how can the two of you deal with the financing of this child's life? Because this child is your husband's child.
Well, the next one, Fundisi, it's basically comments that are coming from the presentation. With one comment saying that I would rather stay single, which I don't think it is the intention of the conversation, though we must accept that the conversation is quite heavy. And I like the comment that says it is best that these conversations, we need to have them first with our children, that is the young people, before they can make life-changing decisions. We should have these discussions with them, unlike having discussions such as these, after the fact. And also, there is a comment here that says the topic is very heavy and it needs more time. I think there is generally consensus that says we need more time to deal with this. And you were quite right, Mfundisi, in your advice to say that the issue of blended families is not something that we can conclude in one sitting. There's just a lot that needs to be dealt with. There is also a comment that is coming from Sister Mambi that says your recommendation of Dr. Rapid's book, is very much appreciated. Fortunately, Dr. Rapid is here in Pretoria, and we do have access to her. And I think that with the organizers of this seminar, we can call her, to come and have a talk to us about this topic. Now, the last question says, in case where all have seen about the blended families is a problem after problem, would it be fair for me to advise my kids against, should they be at a marriage age? Meaning that I think what the question is trying to say is that when I have a son, will it be advisable to tell him that, look, when you're looking for a wife, make sure that the one who has a child is an absolute no? Or when I have a daughter, I say, when you're looking for a husband and you are meeting a husband, just make sure that the one who has a child is an absolute no. Is that what you can advise, Mfundisi?
When dealing with young people, it's always advisable to empower them. It's always advisable for you to say, these are the challenges that come with a blended family. The same way we are going to say, these are the challenges that come with marrying someone who's not of your faith. Do you understand? These are the challenges of marrying this kind of a person. We do so. Someone who's going to marry someone outside of their race, I would sit and say, these are the challenges that come with it. I've had people who say, I want to marry someone from another culture. I'm like, these are the challenges that come with it. You do so that the person is empowered, they can make an informed decision. When you don't empower the person with information and you simply say, this one is a no, do you know what happens? The person can think that you're just discriminating. They can think that you just don't like people with kids. They can think that you just don't like people who are not of your faith. They can think that you just don't like people of other races or people of other cultures because they don't understand where you're coming from. And if they feel that they do not have that prejudice, they can go ahead and marry someone who's from another race or someone who already has children, not knowing that there's other information that even if they were to choose to get married would have helped them in preparation. I would say empower your children with information. Let them know what they are going to be dealing with. When you have empowered them, they will then make a decision. Remember, when you're dealing with adults, the decision is going to be theirs. And since you can't force them to say it's a no, it's not going to take you anywhere. Give them information, then they can make informed decision. If they choose not to marry someone who already has children because they feel that the information and what they know about themselves, they can't handle it, then so be it. If they choose, fine, they are adequately prepared to be in a blended family, then they'll do so and they'll make it work. So I would say instead of saying advise them against it, I would say empower them with information so that they can make informed decisions.
Yeah. Well, Mfundisi, as the saying would go, that the Lord works in mysterious ways. Dr. Mabel Rapid is with us today in this very seminar, and I know that she was not prepared that she would say something, but I'm not going to pass the opportunity and allow her to log off without saying anything. I'm just going to allow her 2 minutes that she should make a contribution on this topic. Over to you, Dr. Rapidze. She's still here. She's no longer here.
I think someone needs to unmute her.
Technical team.
Yeah, no, she just needs to unmute herself. We have allowed her to be able to unmute herself.
Let's hope it's
Okay.
not someone using her computer and that person is wondering, yo, what am I going to say?
Fortunately, we hosted not so long ago in Moitloof on conflict resolution. Ma'am, are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, let's do this.
Or is
While
it
she's
someone
working on
using
unmuting herself. Okay, I think she's on now.
Yes. I was just away right now, so I missed what you wanted me to say. What would you like me to say?
No, ma'am, we've just had a discussion with the pastor on blended families. I think you must have gotten a bit of the presentation. So there was a recommendation that we need to get your book that addresses the issue. So I would love you just to give us 2 minutes of a comment on this.
Oh,
sorry, ma'am. I did not think I was putting you on the spot. I was just recommending your book.
okay. First of all, I just want to thank Pastor Lupondwana for the presentation. It was so clearly articulated. And I just wished that even people who are planning to get married, single people, and especially the youth, could be here, because it was just so easy and clearly articulated. But all in all, I just want to say it is very important to empower ourselves with information on blended families, because we have more information about ordinary, or let me say traditional marriage. And when we are in blended families, we tend to have expectations of the traditional marriage. And when it comes to parenting, there are challenges there. When it comes to residence, finances, there are a lot of challenges that we need to know. But it's good for those who are already in blended families, because you are able to say, hey, yeah, no, I see, I should have done this, but I think we can fix this one up, especially when it comes to discipline, where we often think that the head of the family should do the disciplining, when actually we are saying, we are making children to view this person as a something like that. I liked it when Pastor Lupondwana highlighted the fact that your role is to support the biological parent. Yeah, for premarital counseling, this is very important. This is very important. Some of the things, they really make sense to me, because I'm in a blended family as well. And I think that's one of the things that motivated me to write the book on blended family. I believe it's very important for those in blended families to read the book and continue to empower yourself on blended families. And those who are not, you never know. You might be in a blended family some few years to come. You need to be informed. We are also helping other couples. We are also helping the young people. So the more information we have on blended families, the better. But I thank Pastor Lupondwana.
Okay, ma'am, thank you very much. What we will do as the organizers, we will make available the information on where to get hold of the book from Dr. Rapidze, so that you can get a copy for yourself, and also buy for friends, buy for family members, and any other person that you think the book can assist. Pastor Lupondwana, your closing remarks.
Two things I'd like to deal with before I go. There was a question that someone's raised about, I saw it in the chats, a partner who is buying the child. I'm trying to see, how do you deal with a partner with a situation where a partner is overcompensating to kids. Partner got custody of the kids, now married. The ex is influencing the kids when they are visiting her, and when they come back, they have bad attitude. Now, what you are dealing with there is that environment where I said where the other biological parent is not here, and what they are doing may just be to destroy your relationship. And it happens, and it may be that the breakup was unpleasant. And maybe you want the custody of the kids, and the other one wanted the custody of the kids. You have no control over what the other partner does. What you do have control over is how you respond as a couple. You have control over that. You have control over how you're going to respond to the child. You can sit down and plan. You can sit down and decide how you're going to deal with it so that it does not become a problem here. So you now know that when the child leaves, the child is going to come back with a bad attitude. Sit down and come up with a game plan. How are we going to deal with it when the child comes? You know it's going to happen. You can't change it. You can't change what the other parent does. So don't stress about things that are beyond your control. Start saying, what can we do? What can we control? We can control the environment when the child comes back. Let's deal with it. How are we going to talk? How are we going to deal with it? That's your game plan. When the child leaves, you know it's going to happen. So that's what I would say. Don't cry and weep over the other parent's behavior because you have no control over. Deal with a plan. What are you going to do with it? That's number one. Number two, someone saying, how does a child demonstrate loyalty to the present parent and accept the other biological parent without appearing grateful? The phrasing of the language, the question is helpful because it illustrates the fact that sometimes you, as the resident parent who lives with a child, we can feel that we struggled with you, we raised you, we paid for you, the other parent was not as involved as they could have been. When you try to connect with the other parent, it's as if you are ungrateful for all the things I did. It's as if you are unloyal to me as the parent who struggled with you. Now you want to go after that other parent and have a relationship. It's because the parent feels that because that one did not get involved as much as they could, I was the one who was with you, or I am the one who's with you. You are supposed to show your gratitude to me, the parent who raised you. You are supposed to show your loyalty to me, the parent who's resident with you, by having nothing to do with that parent. And I would say to this, two things I would say. One, parents, please put your children in that situation, because it is unfair for you to expect that just because you broke up with that man, that your child should break up with him as well. It is unfair. It is unfair for you to think that, to operate as though since you divorced the child, the other parent, your child has also divorced that parent. It is unfair to expect that, to expect the child to act as though they have divorced their parent. It is unfair. To the child, I would say, if that's how your parent feels, there's very little you can do. And have a conversation with the parent, the biological parent, the one who's resident with you, and hopefully they will not see it that way. But it is perfectly within your rights, and it's healthy for you to have a relationship with the other biological parent who is not resident. And it would be good if your current your resident parent does not associate that with ingratitude or with disloyal, with you being disloyal. I'm not sure practically how you're going to do it, other than especially if you're the one you live with feels you're being ungrateful, you're being unloyal, you're being disloyal. In closing, the Spirit of God is able to make success where it looks bleak. Today, we spoke about the challenges of blended families, and you may walk away feeling, it's best not to get in. When Jesus spoke about divorce, he says that if any man divorces his wife, he causes her to commit adultery. Do you know the reaction of the people who are listening? They said, if that is the case, it's better not to marry. They were talking about marriage. They were not talking about blended families. It's simply because sometimes when we look at any relationship from the perspective of only its challenges, it can look so overwhelming. But it can also be a successful blended family. I know you can have successful blended families. I know because a lot of people have been in blended families. Those blended families have gone very well, and they have succeeded in them. And so I would like to say to anyone who's in a blended family, that there is hope. There is hope. It can succeed. It can succeed. It's going to require both work. It's going to require that you both are converted. It's going to require that you ask the Holy Spirit to work on you. And it's going to require that you expect that certain things are going to be difficult and certain things are going to be unpleasant. It comes with the territory. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, especially if you choose to work together as a team and be a blessing to one another. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thanks, Fundisi. We truly appreciate, and of course, there is an opportunity that we can have another seminar and expound on this topic and many other topics that we feel that they still need. I mean, there is also the issue of I forget the abbreviation, but of gays and lesbians, which is something that we are dealing with, our children are dealing with, and it is something that has become a thorny issue and a thorny topic that sometimes we avoid for various reasons, and it's something that we need to be dealing with. At this moment, I wish to take this opportunity and appreciate everyone who participated in the program, the organizers from Moitluf, the organizers from Acacia, Munich, English SDA, and TESDA. Thank you very much. We do appreciate working together with you. It was such a pleasure. It was something that really was quite refreshing to see the four churches coming together to make this seminar a possibility. Our pastors, our elders, thank you very much. Family Life directors in various churches, thank you very much. We appreciate. And a special word of appreciation to the two brothers who are they are brother-in-law. That is Brother Mhambi and Brother Maroba from Germany, who conceptualized, this seminar and brought it to life until it became what it is today. We thank them very much and we wish to appreciate them. At this moment, I'm going to hand over to Brother Maroba to give us a vote of thanks from Munich. We have done that in the South African side. And then immediately after that, I'm going to ask Pastor Blessing to give us a word of prayer as we'll be closing. Over to you, Brother Maroba.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, on behalf of the Munich English SDA Church, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who was involved in making this program a possibility and a success in a very, very, very special way. We thank Pastor Lupondwana for messages that were very insightful, incredibly relevant, bold in tackling very, very difficult topics. We really appreciate that we had, we were led, as some people may say. We felt your experience, your knowledge, and it made a great impact for each of us. It's very interesting. Obviously, in Munich, as many parts of the world, we've been in lockdown for the past 3 months now. And it's quite interesting that for us, the period of social distancing has been a period of connecting. We are a church with members from all over the world. You may easily pick up that I'm South African, even though I've been living in Germany for the past 4 years. We have people from practically every continent on the planet. And even though, we were in lockdown in our separate homes, through various programs in this period, we've managed to come together as a church. But importantly, we've managed to come together with believers from many, many parts of the world. And this week, we've been privileged to connect with churches in South Africa. And we really appreciate the opportunity you gave us to work together with you. we hope and look forward to further collaborations. A word of thanks also to Brother Gia and the many people in the background. There's so many people in the technical teams, the various elders. I wouldn't be able to name them by name, but we really appreciate the hard work. I think when one just logs in and attends these programs, you can't imagine the amount of work that happens in the background to make sure that everyone is ready on time, the musicians are ready, the platform works, it's ready, and so on. So we really appreciate the sacrifices and the efforts. Yeah, that's all from me. We really thank God for this opportunity, and we encourage everyone involved to continue doing this, empowering and reaching out. These are things that are relevant to people out there, and it's a great way to reach out to non-SDAs because everyone is a family. So we really encourage that the churches in many ways continue to host such programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shall we close our eyes with Pastor Blessing?
Let us bow for the benediction. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, you have led us this far along the way. Keep us in the path, we pray. Cause your light to shine upon us. Cause your countenance to bright our hearts, our homes, our families. Turn to God everything we touch. Write our names in the book of life. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you and
God bless.
goodbye.